Else
Realm Diner.
Hello, I'm Mark,
And I'm Ruth.
and welcome to the Else Realm Diner. It came from the swirling depths of the multiverse, a sentient cafe, a cosmic mystery, transporting its clientele through all manner of realms. No one knows where the diner came from exactly. All we know is that it seeks interesting conversation, warm memories, and good banter.
On the menu today is the computer games that made us. We are going to take a trip down nostalgia lane and share with you the computer games that have stuck with us for various reasons through our lives. And then we'll see where that takes us on our tasting sensations today.
Yeah. I think we were just talking a little bit before we started recording about our lists, and it's interesting where the nuances that we've taken from this remit, as it were. So you've gone down the path of games that you keep on returning to, whereas I've definitely got milestones along a sort of almost like a gaming career. But we'll come back to that in momentarily. First of all, Ruth, what have you been watching lately?
So I'm almost embarrassed to admit this. So I went to the cinema this week.
Say it.
And watched Morbius. So before I tell you about this, let's just clarify that I went in with very low expectations.
Yeah.
And I went in because I like Jared Leto and I like vampires. And it managed to... It managed to be so much worse than I could ever have imagined. Oh dear, it was awful. Why are you celebrating this?
Well, because you were saying, do you want to go and see it? And I was like, no, no, the reviews are terrible. And I asked you, actually, do you remember? I asked you to keep an eye out for how much blood there was in the film, in this vampire film, where people's throats get slashed. Did you see any blood?
Actually, no.
No.
Well, there was a little bit of blood. The thing is, I watch very violent movies. I didn't really notice. There was blood.
Yeah.
Because there was like blue blood and red blood, as in artificial blood and real blood. And there was a lot of blood in bags.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of blood around a mouth, like as somebody had slightly drooled.
Yeah, like ketchup. Yeah.
But the most of the blood was like just gone from the bodies because vampires.
Yeah. So the thing is, now in the defense of the film, I have seen an interview or two with the director, and he was saying that they started work on this movie. And I think they might have even been filming it before Avengers Endgame came out. So before the sort of the big Marvel chapter-ending standard setter had been released, they were filming this film. It's been a long time coming. It's been delayed by COVID and so on and so forth. And then also as well, Sony have monkeyed with, so there's an after credits scene, which is a bit unfortunate and has made a bit of a mess of the implications of what was actually a really interesting universe smash up in Spider-Man No Way Home. So it sounds a little bit like, I suppose, like we were talking about last time with regards to Alien 3. It sounds like the studio and timing and other bits and bobs might have got in the way of the film.
I don't think that's the problem.
No.
I genuinely don't think that's the problem. I'll tell you what I think the problem was, right? So Jared Leto was really quite good in it, although he was kind of ugly and weird. I don't think it sets up a good kind of premise for disabled people, but the major problem with it was Matt Smith.
Okay, interesting.
Him and Morbius was supposed to have like a long-standing, deep
childhood friendship,
childhood friendship, and none of that came across.
No.
none of that came across. And Matt Smith's character, which I don't even know his name because I just didn't care enough about him. Like at the end, he wants them to like. So all the way through, he's like, "I want us to do this together. You know, we've got this." Oh, sorry, spoilers. We've got this like special gift, and we should like be a team. And then he continues to attack Morbius, and I'm like, how does that? What says? Yeah, like what? How does that work? Like, let's be friends while I smack you around.
So is there a slight element of Interview with the Vampire? That kind of
no, because that was good.
Yeah, and played.
Like, there's literally zero of interest between the two. Like, they told us all the way through they were really close, but there was no moments where you actually get any closeness. And also, I don't know why, but after watching this, I now despise Matt Smith.
That's a real shame. That's a shame. I mean, I had heard that he was chewing the scenery a lot in the film. That he's just having a ridiculous, like dancing over dead bodies and this kind of thing. But it's a shame that that he's left you cold.
Yeah, I mean,
Did he drain you like a vampire of your love of vampires? Just
no.
No.
I just refuse to recognize him as a member of that species.
That's a shame.
It was just a travesty. And like the love interest was a bit of a joke as well, because they had no chemistry or anything. So I think for me there was just nothing character-wise building. And I did think Jared Leto was good in it.
Yeah.
I think he's interesting. I think he's okay. I know he's got bad press and stuff, but I think he's interesting as an actor.
Well, he keeps on being doing interesting roles in movies that apparently let it down, and there comes a point when you have to wonder: is it just that he keeps on making bad choices? You see what I mean? Because the thing is, I think he plays a version of Jared Leto. That's the problem to a certain extent. In Blade Runner, for example, he's Jared Leto, but looking at the ground all the time. I don't know, but the thing is, I don't mean to be. I'm glad that you find him interesting and that you find that you got something there in that sense. But I mean, is it my understanding is that this film feels like a 20-year-old superhero film. This is a film that feels like it's sort of.
I wouldn't even give it that much credit. It feels like a film that shouldn't have been made.
Oh, okay. Wow.
No, it's a shame. It's a real shame. But it's just bad. It's just really bad. I honestly had low expectations going in. I really didn't need much to be satisfied in my cinema experience. I was just like, some vampires, some interesting acting, I'll be happy. No, I didn't get on with the vampires at all. Like, it didn't make sense. Like how it didn't. So certain things didn't make sense. Like, he figured out he had like super hearing and could fly, and then the Matt Smith character didn't. And when they were fighting, it was just rubbish. You couldn't tell what was happening. It was all this weird smoke stuff and some like grunty stuff, and I was just like, oh, this is so bad. So yeah, unfortunately, it was really, really bad. And I think they should have stopped going for action in the final scenes when they were like just fighting, and they should have gone for character.
Pathos.
Yeah. I think it would have hit harder. And I think it would have made it possible. But like, like when Matt Smith finally died, you're like, thank God he was annoying, rather than, oh my God, he's just had to kill his best friend. So I just had literally no connection with literally any of the characters. So
okay. Well, in other viewing arena, we together we watched Oculus, didn't we, a couple of days ago?
Oh yes, we did. Yes,
Yeah,
that was
and
good.
yeah, and what was interesting is obviously between the two of us, Ruth is more of the horror hound, it would seem. But despite actually suggesting that we watch this film, it seems that this one actually got under your skin on this viewing. 'Cause obviously, you'd seen it before, but you were just in a particular place where it was just creeping you out, weren't you?
Yeah, I think I had seen it before, but it was a long time ago, and I couldn't really remember. I mean, I remembered little bits and pieces. But I think like the idea of family killing you is particularly irksome to me.
Yeah.
And I think it's a creepy. It's really, really a creepy film.
Well, it's interesting because I suppose one of the reasons that things like Halloween worked so well is that it turned home environments into scary places, doesn't it? The shadow in the closet, the falling off the balcony, etc., and being chased relentlessly by something. But in this instance, this was. I mean, long story short, for people who haven't seen Oculus, I won't spoil it, but there's a creepy mirror, and that mirror may or may not be influencing people to do things to their loved ones and to themselves. And
bad things. We should probably
things.
clarify.
Bad, yes, bad things. Yeah,
they're not making you hug your friends and stuff. It's like
hug your wife.
Things.
Buy her some flowers. She deserves it. No, but it sort of plays with the fact that within the household, actually lives can unfold that are entirely private to the rest of the world. So the fact that the grown-up dad, who's definitely corrupted by this force, is able to rebut neighbours' inquiries as to what's happening in the house so easily because adults trust adults, is something that I definitely found chilling. But then also as well, it's the fact that the whole film revolves around. Actually, we've just been talking about Matt Smith. We have
Amy Pond.
Amy Pond, yeah.
That's not her name, is it?
No, that's not her name. But we have her. We have the
another Doctor Who person.
Another Doctor Who connection, as the grown-up daughter who experienced this trauma as a child, who's now trying to get her revenge on the mirror. And so it also speaks of sort of intergenerational trauma and violence and the legacy of essentially families gone wrong. And so whether the mirror's there or not, I think the violence that you see is enough to unsettle you, I think. But of course, the mirror is absolutely doing this to them. That's the thing. So I don't think the dad would be horrible otherwise.
I quite liked the fact that you didn't know whether what they were seeing or not seeing was real. Like, you didn't know if the phone call was real. You didn't know if they were really outside the house. You didn't know. They went into a room and everything looked like it had been moved, and then they replayed the footage and they had moved it and had no memory of it. And that all was kind of just like being unaware of what you're doing is kind of a creepy
prospect, and also not being able to trust your own senses, and it's also good because I thought you might appreciate the fact that they that actually it's Karen Gillan is the actress's name. I just remembered that she had set out a fairly well constructed and experimental environment to try and keep herself and her brother as safe as possible as they were trying to enact revenge on this entity, this mirror.
I don't think they were trying to enact revenge. I think they were trying to destroy it.
Well, yeah, but there's a reason that she sort of draws it out. She's trying to demonstrate that the mirror has effects on people, and so as to basically prove that her dad wasn't just a murderer. I thought it was really good. Also, as well, I believe the whole thing is based on what was a short film on YouTube as well.
Yes, which we were going to watch, but it was too late, wasn't it? So we'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
I'd genuinely be interested because, like, I remember watching the short. Do you know the Slender Man?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's a short on YouTube that's the Slender Man, which is really good, and then there's the Slender Man movie, which isn't.
which isn't.
But that's yeah. And then there's another one. I think Lights Out was based on a short. But I liked Lights Out, maybe controversially, but I thought that was scary and creepy and.
Well, and yet again, this is going right back to our first episode. This is yet another way in which horror movies are a great experimental space. They're one of the places where, you could say Hollywood's out of ideas and therefore they're trolling through fan fiction and creepypasta and this kind of thing.
No, I think they've always drawn on
no, they have.
Whatever's available, haven't they? They've always drawn on other people's creativity and taken it and done something with it.
Yeah, no, they have. They absolutely have. But it's interesting how this is that is the space in which these sorts of stories can be made, come from fairly small media backgrounds and become an internationally screened movie. Whether they're good or not, whether they're treated properly or not, that's a whole other issue, as we've just been touching on with Morbius. But anyway, let us move on now to the topic of the day, and that is the games that made us, the computer games that made us. And I suppose I just wanted to start out with a bit of a caveat for my part, because it occurred to me, and I'm sure you had a similar problem here, whittling down what by now is a more than 3 decades long career of playing games to a small list is not easy. And I actually checked, and so our games library in our house, me and Mrs. Soup, we have 800 plus games, and I suppose what I should say is the games I'm going to talk about today are games that are very important to me. They are favourites, but this isn't a comprehensive list of I think either of our top favourite games necessarily, is it? Or games, or all of the games that are important to us.
No, so I would say it's definitely not all of the games that are important to me, but I think I play computer games very differently to you, because I tend to get obsessed with a computer game and play it like until I know it backwards, and then go on to the next one. And there isn't time in that kind of behavior to play 800 games because I literally will play one for like 6 months.
Yep.
And maybe play it for you like many times, and maybe even longer than that, because I've played some of them for longer than that. But like, yeah. So I think I go back to the same ones over and over and over again. It's not that I don't play other ones, it's just they don't tug me back. But I certainly haven't got the same library that you have.
No. And that's partly because also as well, I gathered together my games, so mine and my brother's games over the years. My wife's brother, my brother-in-law, he gave us his stuff. My wife brought her stuff. And then, of course, I've just been collecting some stuff because over the years
I gave you stuff.
You gave me stuff, exactly. Yeah. So in that sense, it's a big, it's almost like an urban family museum, really, in some ways. So, but where do we want to start? Are we going to start sort of roughly chronologically? Do you think?
I was wondering that. I think chronologically is probably the way to go. Although I think I might have to just make a note about what is the chronicle order in which I did these.
Oh, you see, I'm super prepared, and I have a list with dates and consoles and everything. Because
you do.
Because I am,
of course you do.
Amazing. Well, tell you what, shall I start?
Yes.
I'll start with. I'm not going to talk at length about the first one on this line, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog Mega Drive 1991, because I know that you're probably going to talk about it. Exactly. But what I would say is that the Mega Drive was my first gaming console, and it wasn't my first gaming experience. That was on my cousin's SNES. Actually, no, even that, it was actually on a plug and play version of an Atari console. But anyway, but this was our first home console. We got it for Christmas, I think, in 1991, actually. And Sonic was very important. But I'll talk about Sonic with you when you're talking about Sonic. On that console, though, there were 2 games that really stand out to me as sort of little milestones in my gaming life. And the first one is Micro Machines.
Loved it.
I know, it's so good.
I loved that game so much.
Oh, it's such a good racing game. Again, also released in 1991, and it was a game that had a top-down perspective, racing around different courses. It was incredibly creative. I always remembered the pool tables and the snooker tables where you'd sort of drop down a pocket and emerge out of another pocket, and race along rulers. And there'd be, to be fair, whenever I saw, especially on the snooker tables, that some kid, I imagined to be me, I guess, had drawn out the track using chalk on the felt, I thought,
Yes.
someone's going to be very angry about this. But the fact
I remember with that, didn't that have 2 extra sockets in the game cartridge that you could plug?
That was number 2. That was the second
was it
Micro
number
Machines.
2?
Yeah. But again, you're right. Yeah, and then actually the fact that throughout the course of the Micro Machines games, you had certain characters as well. So there was it Snake? It was the sort of the cool kind of greaser.
Yeah,
you had Cherry.
This is kind of coming back to me. Yeah.
This sort of like slightly ditzy polka dot sort of teenager. What was it? Was it someone called Biff or Boff or there was like a.
It sounds. Yeah,
Biff.
I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
I have not thought about Micro Machines for so many years, and this is all kind of like vaguely, drawing me back in.
All these amazing characters that really.
Have you got this still?
Yeah. I've got.
Oh my gosh!
I've got them upstairs.
I think we should play it at some point.
Yeah, totally. So all these amazing characters that sort of even actually right up until the most recent Micro Machines game I played was on the PlayStation 4. It's awful. It's really awful. I've still got it because I keep on going back to it going, it can't be this bad, but it's really bad. But they still have some of these same characters in. So they're sort of timeless characters that became associated with the Micro Machines games. Later on, you had sort of verses with like tanks that you could sort of shoot at each other in sand pits and this kind of thing. That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
But also with the Mega Drive version, presumably with all the versions, of that first game, you were filling up a collection of Micro Machines in like a toy box as you raced through the whole game, and eventually you'd get to these sort of oversized monster trucks, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Towards the end of the game, which was it was so much fun. The only thing that slightly bothers me now, going back to it, as a grown up, and also as a grown up who obviously has seen the advent of high definition gaming and orchestrated soundtracks. Is the sound of the engine is a bit one note. So now basically you sort of go, it doesn't stop. But that's fine. I mean, I think if you played those games when they were new, or if you play them at the right time in your life, you won't notice that. You won't think about it. But I know that, for example, my lovely wife, last time I tried to play Micro Machines with her in the room, she was like, turn it off! Because it was just this sort of, so I can understand that, definitely. So Micro Machines, and then for me, the joint with that really is a game called Psycho Pinball, Mega Drive,
which I've never heard of.
It's a brilliant little game. Actually, you can emulate it. There are various links online where you can play it on PC. As I say, released in 1994, and it's just a brilliant pinball game because, I love pinball. I grew up in North Wales on the coast. We have arcades, especially in Rhyl, where pinball is still a thing. And really, I grew up in a situation where I didn't know it wasn't a thing in other parts of the country, as it were. Then again, I also grew up not knowing that shell suits weren't a thing.
But I had a shell suit eventually.
But I'm pretty sure that sort of Real and Prosthetic were about 10 years behind the fashion trend on that one. But yeah, so pinball was very, very important, and I always wanted to bring that experience home. And obviously, it's expensive. I mean, and now it's even more expensive to maintain things like the light bulbs and the circuitry, etc., and the mechanics. But Psycho Pinball doesn't try to emulate pinball. I've got other pinball games like Gottlieb Pinball on the Wii, or Stern Pinball on Switch. Yeah, and there are there's FX Pinball, there's Zen Pinball. That try to sort of give you a simulation. This while it simulates the physics of a ball on a playfield with the flippers quite nicely, it's taking advantage of a computer game. It's taking advantage of the fact that it can do things that you can't do in the real world. It's vibrant in terms of its colors. It's got a really good soundtrack. And basically what it does is it merges together. You can play a central table, which is like a circus sort of setup where you can go into different tents and that will lead you to another table. So there's a spooky haunted house table, there's a Wild West table, and there's an under the sea table, which is loosely sort of, Ariel kind of inspired, Little Mermaid. And together they make for this evolving, exciting, the tables can sort of change how they behave as you play through, as you get higher scores. I just played that game over and over and over again as a kid. It's just, in fact, I've actually got 2 versions on floppy disk. I don't have a floppy disk drive, but I have 2 versions on floppy disk on the shelf behind me, just because I love the game so much. I mean, if nothing else, I would strongly recommend. In fact, I'd recommend to you, Ruth, give it a go. Maybe emulate it.
Yeah.
Because you basically just play it through the browser on your PC. I can send you a link if you're interested.
What was Psycho about it? Why was it called Psycho Pinball?
Because it was 90s, man. No, because.
Oh, right, okay.
No, so actually, there's an advert on my my high school art folder that I cut out of a magazine for Psycho Pinball. I really was obsessed with this game, where you got this guy who's holding an armadillo, because in the opening sequence to especially the Mega Drive version, less so the PC version, there's an armadillo that sort of rolls up and spins into a pinball, and then apparently that's the art. So for some reason, the armadillo was psycho, inverted commas.
Well, obviously.
Yep. And you got this sort of punk guy with like a denim jacket, safety pins on his clothes and like a red mohawk, holding an armadillo. And it just says Psycho Pinball. So I don't know. I can't adequately explain why it's psycho. But it's definitely exciting. And I think, to be fair, do you think, I suppose you could call a game psycho these days if it was like connected to a murderer or something. If it was like
like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Get away with this.
Yeah, but yeah.
Oh God.
But I think having a
Zodiac Psycho.
Yeah, or if it was like a like they've done
Psycho. I think they've done like one where you're a psycho.
Well, they've done versions of. I mean, there's
where you go around and kill people. What's that? Where you're like a prisoner or something.
Well,
break out.
I mean, there's what is it called? Until Dawn or something. There's a game where you can play as various horror movie villains, just basically catching other people and putting them on hooks. But also as well, they've literally done games where it's all asymmetric gameplay. So one person is the bad guy and the other people are trying to get away from the bad guy. But things like they've done, I think Friday the 13th, for example, as well. So I think these days you could make a game with the word psycho in it, but I can't imagine that calling a game Psycho Pinball today would
they
go
had
down
the
well.
Psychos, didn't they? Do you remember? Did you ever play? What was that game? Where there were like zombies in the mall. Dead Rising.
Yes, Dead Rising.
Yeah, so they had the psycho, like bad boss kind of things, didn't they?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, where you would go and like fight a clown who was a person but was torturing people in this zombie fueled world. That's true. And also
it's interesting how we're getting slightly off track now, but it's interesting how in that game I was always kind of annoyed by these psychos. I wanted to explore.
Totally opposite for me. I was like, when is the next psycho mission? They are the best.
Dead by Daylight. That's the game where they've inserted various game and movie villains that people try and run away from, and you can take turns playing as. So anyway, that's my sort of first couple of milestones. It's Mega Drive, and it's Micro Machines and Psycho Pinball, I think.
Okay. So my first real, I don't even know if this is I don't even know if this was before Sonic or not, but I think it was first.
Mm-hmm.
It was certainly the first game I remember vividly, but I'm not very good at remembering chronologically. So it was Monkey Island. It was actually Monkey Island 2.
Mm-hmm.
So what had happened was my family had gone on holiday in Scotland, and I had got a chest infection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had to go to the doctor, and we were camping, and they'd basically said, you can't continue camping. So rather than go home, my parents had dumped me on my auntie and uncle to stay at their house for a week while they continued the holiday, because they happened to live nearby in Scotland.
Okay.
So I basically slept in my auntie's spare room, which had a computer in it. And as I got better, I played Monkey Island 2. And it's a point and click adventure game, which I have been obsessed with these games since. I've obviously played Monkey Island 1 and 2 numerous times, but that was my first introduction, and I love those two games because they're so full of like humor, and they've got dark subject matter which really appeals to me. You know, so like the premise at the beginning of Monkey Island 1 is that it's, you know, Guybrush Threepwood, who everybody mocks his name, wants to be a pirate, and so you go off on this mission to try and become a pirate, and there's a romance story, and there's like, you have to get dressed up and break into mansions and all sorts of stuff, and it's just really good fun.
And so this is a game from LucasArts, isn't it? The studio.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it's so I had never played it until you basically brought your PlayStation 3 around to our house during lockdown and said, we're going to play these games, and
because
in a nice way. You didn't just kick the door in and
it's like, you have to play these games, they're amazing.
They're amazing.
We didn't actually play Monkey Island 2 though, because the game controls were so awful that it was just, you know, the first one was good. Yeah,
it was very good. And what struck me was that, first of all, they were using the same game engine as the classic Indiana Jones game. So I've played those on Steam. So LucasArts definitely were putting out and taking advantage of this engine that they created. But this world that you introduced me to was so cool, really charming, and also really it had that classic point and click logic, doesn't it?
Yeah. So there's kind of like abstract puzzles where you have to join two items together, which only makes sense in the world of point and click adventure games.
Yeah.
And there was this whole thing about you got a red herring. Yeah, you actually physically got a red herring, and then you're like, is this a red herring or is it a red herring?
Yeah. What do I do with this red herring, or is it a red? But and also, so in that sense, I can sort of see where, because I didn't really grow up with the PC. I grew up with consoles in the house, and we were actually quite late getting hold of a PC.
Well, as I say, we didn't have the PC for this. I'd played it at my auntie's.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something that we had at my house, but it was just because I was there for a week and I was ill. So,
but that legacy of point and click logic really explains why, when I finally got round to playing, there's a game called Secret Files Tunguska, where you're trying to solve the Tunguska blast, and I've played it touch screen on my phone, but also Mr. Soup and I were playing it on the Wii. And there was a point where we had to try and get down a manhole. So there was we knew we had to get through this manhole cover, and all we had really in our inventory was a sandwich with lots of mayo on it. Can you guess what you had to do? Did
you have to put the mayo on to make yourself slippery?
Yes, that's right. We put it on ourselves and slid. No. You had to put the mayo on the manhole cover. Apparently that loosened it. Yeah. But we was a good, maybe, I don't know, a couple of days of coming back to this game and going, what? But it's the point and click logic. It's the point and click logic, which is a thing of beauty. And then recently though, you introduced me to is it Thimbleweed Park?
Yes. Yeah.
It's felt very much like a spiritual successor to those games.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. I mean, one of my favorite game mechanics actually in the Monkey Island thing, which we haven't mentioned, is when you learn to sword fight.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I haven't seen used. I've played a lot of point and click games because I loved it so much, trying to recreate the magic. But the mechanism where you learn to sword fight is you have to go and fight a lot of pirates, and the fighting's not really the thing. It's the cutting, back and forth with cutting words. So you have to learn insults and you have to learn comebacks. And so you have to go and lose a lot of fights to learn insults, and then you have to use those insults on other pirates to try and learn suitable comebacks. And then you have to fight the sword master, who gives you like completely different insults, and you have to pick from the list of comebacks that you've got to try and beat her, which was just, and I've seen, so they've used that game mechanic in every Monkey Island sequel, like, because I think there's 5 now, but they're not good. They don't have the same thing. They went 3D after 3 and I just lost it. But yeah, so that game mechanic's wonderful.
Well, which also seems to be, I mean, speaking of lockdown gaming, it also seems to be the pattern that we observed when we went through the Broken Sword series as well.
Oh yes, but that's on my list as well,
Oh, okay. We'll come to Broken Sword in a second then. So next for me, moving forward in time to 1992, 1993, it's Game Boy. Basically, I got hold of a Game Boy. I was given a Game Boy. I didn't just steal it. And the Game Boy came with Kirby's Dream Land, and I didn't realize, because I up until that point I'd never really, apart from one brief afternoon on an SNES, I'd never really played a Nintendo game. I didn't realize just how interesting Kirby was as a weird game, where you can run along, inhale characters, blow them out. You can sort of inflate yourself and float around. You can, it's platforming in a very sort of bouncy but slightly sinister sort of world on a little green dot matrix screen. And while that was my first platform, I mean, most people I suppose would have played Nintendo platformer, I should say, sorry. Most people probably experienced Mario for the first time on Game Boy, I guess. For me, it was Kirby's Dream Land. So Kirby's always been very special to me. But the biggie is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. It just blew my mind. And the thing, I mean, I think we'll probably come back to Zelda in a bit with you. But the exciting thing for me with that game was having a little world. Not so much in my pocket. Obviously, pocket size in the 90s wasn't really pocket size, but it could fit in your pocket. But having this portable little world that was full of things to discover, full of challenge and the dungeons and the classic sort of Zelda setup, but also as well, it's a very weird and quirky game actually. And this, maybe that's just my thing. I'm drawn to weird and quirky, especially on Game Boy at the time, because it was drawing in little Easter eggs from other computer games. Like there's a Yoshi doll in there, there's some Mario enemies that turn up, there's a Goombas and this kind of thing. But I didn't know what it was referencing. All I knew was that this felt like playing a little world that was also very dreamlike, because there's all these weird things coming into it. And they went on to sort of to replicate this in the remake on Switch in like a claymation style that I think worked very well. But so my love of Zelda basically began there, and really my love of the potential of computer games to be something that can transport you started there. Because really with Psycho Pinball and Micro Machines and even Sonic the Hedgehog, it's stuff happening on the screen that's it's a game. I'm playing with the game, and I am very much separate from it. Whereas it felt like, especially Zelda, sort of drew me into the world in that sense. It was almost like an RPG. But more to the point, it was a little world that I was exploring, that in the back of the car, the grown-ups around me had no idea where I was and what I was doing, if that's what I mean. It just felt so exciting, and yet so simple. When you look back on it, it's a really simple little game, really.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get on with Zelda, I actually haven't got on with Zelda until Breath of the Wild, which is the last one on my list, so I won't spend time with it. But I mean, I find with Zelda, I have tried to play them. I just find them a little bit, you go to a dungeon, you do a thing, and then you go to another dungeon, and you do a very similar but slightly different thing. And then you go to another dungeon, and you do a very similar but slightly different thing again.
Yeah.
And that's the game.
Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't something that drew me in. But I know those games are much beloved. And I mean, I had spoken to Mrs. Soup and you about maybe trying to play some of the earlier Zeldas with you, to see if I could kind of find in it what people love. But to me, it has unfortunately just kind of not.
Is it possibly because you were coming from that background of a sort of narrative driven, quite creative sort of way of playing a game, like for example in Monkey's Island?
Maybe. I mean, I do love a game with a narrative. But then I also like Animal Crossing, where there is zero narrative. So yeah, I mean, I suppose I find like, how there's all the puzzles in like Resident Evil and stuff.
Yes.
They were always the most boring bits to me. Oh God,
Resident Evil isn't on my list. Oh, I can't believe it. Resident Evil 2.
It's not on my list on my phone. I'm thinking,
Okay, honourable mention.
Yeah, honourable mention. But yeah, but the puzzles in that were always less interesting to me than the bit where you're like stealthing around and trying to, and you're getting scared by monsters coming up and stuff. So I guess I think the reason why I get frustrated with the puzzles is I could see what to do, but then actually making the computer do it took ages.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was frustrated by the fact of like, you just need to do this.
Just do the thing.
Just do it. And I'm like, if I can understand how it's done, why do I then have to take 10 minutes making the computer do it? So that was why I was frustrated with puzzle games, I think. Because the mechanism of how to get the puzzles to be solved was much slower than my brain in processing how to do it.
That makes sense. I can't be alone in listening to that and seeing in my head Shia LaBeouf just going, do it! Just
oh my God, I don't want that. No, that's not okay. That's not okay.
Sorry,
not an okay comparison.
I just happen to know that Ruth doesn't like Shia LaBeouf.
That's making me die inside. I just can't. Like, that might be the most offensive thing you've ever said to me.
Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Oh my God, shut up. I'm literally dying inside here and you're just rubbing salt into the wound.
Yesterday you said tomorrow, so just do it. Sorry, okay. Okay, so what's next for you then? Sonic. Okay, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog.
So the Sonic thing came from my brother. One of my brothers got a Mega Drive for one Christmas. I'm not sure what year it was, but I don't think it was maybe it was in the early 90s. I don't know. Anyway, you got Sonic with it, didn't you? I think that was the only game we had for a little while. And we played it, 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 and we played it. And then we had to fight my mum because she played Columns.
Oh yes, Columns. Yeah, I remember that.
And that's fine. She used to play a lot of Columns, so we would be like, Peter would be trying to get her off the computer, and we would play Sonic. And
were you guys not into Columns?
I played Columns a bit, but I mean, I played quite a few games on the the Mega Drive. But the one that stands out was the Sonic the Hedgehog, because me and my brother played it so regularly. And I mean, I remember finding there's a level fairly late on called Labyrinth Zone, where there's a boss, but you don't actually have to kill Dr. Robotnik by hitting him 8 times on that boss. You basically have to get up a really long platform column while water is rising on you. And basically, I think I possibly drowned 1,000 times doing that.
It's so stressful, isn't it? Like ding 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 blah, and then and then he sort of sinks. Yeah, sorry.
But I eventually got to the point with that. I mean, I literally must have done that level 1,000 times. As soon as that cheat code, do you remember like
up, down, left, right,
A star?
Yeah. A start at the same time.
Yeah. And that once we got that cheat code, we were like, I used to just go straight to Labyrinth Zone, because that was the one that stopped me completing the game, basically. Every other zone I could manage. And I played it until I could not only get up there, but also beat him so that he flew off like smoking and going, because I was not letting that little fucker survive that horrible level.
Do you know, actually, interestingly, a long time ago now, I made a video on a YouTube channel where I was talking about Sonic and being traumatized actually by the first boss in the game. So bearing in mind,
really?
But bearing in mind, it was my first home console and that was my first game. It came with the Mega Drive. And now obviously it's very easy to beat. It's just Robotnik in a pod with a swinging ball on a chain and 2 platforms. It just was a nightmare, absolute nightmare. I kept on dying, and what?
Because you have to figure out that underneath the platform in the far corner you can't get hit.
Exactly, yeah. But I wasn't doing that, and I remember I have this really vivid memory because we had this square CRTV set up behind. We had a very long living room, sort of dining room area set up behind one of the chairs on like a little stand with the Mega Drive underneath. I remember being like, my nose touching the screen. I could see the RGB. I could see the different colors of the screen. I was like, I hate you to Dr. Robotnik. It was such a passionate anger that I had for him. So I can imagine getting to the point with Labyrinth Zone, just sort of going, yeah, I'm going to go back there. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to own you, and you're going to fly away in tears. Yeah.
And I remember having to because you couldn't save it, could you? I remember having to I remember the first time I completed it with all 6 Chaos Emeralds, which is not an easy task, because I had a mother that was like, you have to eat dinner now, and I'm like, but you don't understand. I know, and so you'd have to pause it and leave it on.
Yeah.
And I had I had 2 brothers who used to hover over that reset button.
Difficult times, man. Difficult
times, yeah. So, but I have completed it with all the Chaos Emeralds a couple of times, just because I wanted to see what was going to happen. But I also cheated when I did it, which is naughty. But so I did the up, down, left, right, A start cheat, and started on the Chaos Emerald Zone 1.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Because I haven't actually managed to do it and get all 6 Chaos Emeralds when I've played without that first one in the bag.
Right. Interesting. So
there's a couple later on that just take me more than one chance to get them.
Okay. Interesting. But that's okay, that's okay. It's a tactic. It's a tactic. It gets you there.
It's a cheaty. I've never won legitimately in my life. It's terrible. Yeah, I love that game. And I recently found the Sonic Mania.
Yes.
Which you'd already played and hadn't told me about because you're a neglectful friend.
I didn't realize you were so into Sonic.
So yeah, I found that and I've been playing that, and that's kind of wonderful.
Yeah, brilliant. Speaking of which, obviously we've had the 30th anniversary of Sonic in the past couple of years. So it's a long and storied series of games, and I think they've definitely had their ups and downs. But yeah, Sonic Mania was definitely a really high up, and we need to have that afternoon where we actually play that game properly.
Oh yeah, no,
yeah.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Although I have to admit, I'm pretty bad at it.
But it's
the
also
bits where it's like the original Sonic and so good, and then when it changes, I'm like, I don't know what to do now.
But it's so good
because I think I play the game by muscle memory.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I don't have the muscle memory, I'm just like, I have no idea. Because I could literally play that first episode through, just like knowing the timing of when to do everything. Because you could also, if you did it properly, you could get 2 extra lives that first level.
Yes, you could. Yeah, it's funny actually. I remember playing Sonic and having the thought one evening that, as you say, it would probably be possible. And I was a kid, and I don't know, definitely less than 9 years old or whatever. Having the thought that that presumably it would be possible just to run the game and I was imagining almost like a robot that could just do inputs, and you could time the inputs on the controller. I mean, these days it would be an algorithm that would run.
They do that for speed runs.
Yeah.
They have like people break it down, and they can do frame by frame presses.
Yeah.
And to work out speed runs and stuff, like best possible ever.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting how actually that was also the first game controller that I ever took apart, because with that in mind I took it apart and thought, oh yeah, you could totally have inputs here and just teach a robot or something how to play Sonic without even having to look at it, obviously, because it would just be a case of button pushes and timings. But so yeah, that's a small weird little way in which I guess gaming is. I think it has all sorts of unintended consequences for your brain, doesn't it? And thinking and outside the box.
I also liked. Okay, this is and we'll move on as I said, but I just need to put this in because Sonic, when he came out, was so cool, wasn't he? Like, he's not that cool now. He's not. But when he first came out, he was like this moody teenager. Like, if you didn't touch a button for like 5 seconds, he'd be like folding his arms and tapping his foot and like tapping his wrist as well. I think he did at one point.
Yeah.
It's like, what's waiting for? So he was like this kind of grumpy, tell you off if you got distracted character. And also it was so fast. I mean, I remember like, when he goes up and round the things in a ball and he's spinning around and he's almost off screen, he's so fast. And that was like really compelling because that was much faster gameplay than we'd had before. So that was quite nice as well. That was good. Sorry, that was the end of my Sonic love.
It's okay. The blast processing of the Mega Drive / Genesis.
The blast processing.
Yeah, it was a gimmick. It was called, blast processing, and supposedly it meant that the console was better for sports games than the SNES was, and so on. So bad, I don't. Well, speaking of outside the box, my next pick is very odd, and it's from the Nintendo 64, and it's not GoldenEye, it's not Mario 64, it's not even Ocarina of Time. It's Carmageddon 64. Now, I don't know if you've ever played a Carmageddon game. Have you? Or
I'm not sure.
No? Okay.
Tell me more about it. I might not know it's called Carmageddon.
So on especially on the PC, it became famous or infamous for the fact that you could win races in several ways. You can either just play the game and win the race.
Oh no, I haven't played Carmageddon.
Or you could run over every single pedestrian on a level, because these races were taking place in urban environments. Or you could take out every other vehicle in the race by crashing into them and stuff like that. So the main car that you have in the game, or the first car you have in the game, is a red car with like a big blade on top of it. You can drive around this kind of thing. Now the thing is, and I can see you sort of going, it's not really. Is this it's not that appeals to me about Carmageddon 64, because Carmageddon 64 is unique. It is a broken game. It's actually, I think it might be the lowest reviewed game ever on the 64.
You picked this game for your
And
games that
I
made
loved
this.
it. I loved it. I whenever I think of this game, I remember, was it the Sum 41 album had come out that summer? I was just listening to that CD over and over again and playing this game. And it was a nerfed version of the game. All the blood was green because it's a Nintendo console. So, and everyone on the levels were zombies, not people. And it played like rubbish. This frame rate was terrible. But there was something about the freedom, oddly enough. So whenever I played it, it wasn't... Initially, I tried to play it like you should. I tried to sort of win races and things like that. But because the steering was so terrible, you just couldn't. You couldn't play the game. And that's why it was so low reviewed. It was almost unplayable. But once you just sort of just played it as a slightly psychedelic experience, it's actually really good. And there's this sense of, as I say, the sense of, all I can describe it as is freedom to explore, to choose what you're going to run over, to try and line up jumps, to sort of go over and over again in an area to try and get the best way through. And, just kind of ignore the fact that you're in a race, ignore the fact that you're going to lose that race, just be there. I found fascinating, and I still find fascinating. I go back to it, and I'm always amazed at how terrible it is, but also how much I love it.
I have a game like that that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'll have heard of it because it never got officially released on the PS1.
Okay.
But it was partially made called Thrill Kill. Have you heard of it?
No.
Oh God, as I say, it was never finished because it was deemed to be too violent.
Okay.
Which was part of the appeal for me. So it was like it was like a fighting game, Mortal Kombat style, kind of Street Fighter-y. You went head to head with these characters, but the characters were all psychos from an insane asylum.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So one of them was a contortionist who would like wrap her head, like legs around somebody's head and rip it off. And then it was all blood and guts everywhere. And it was really, as I say, it never really got anywhere. You should watch some of the scene cuts from there was one guy who was he just fought you and he was in like a straitjacket.
Okay.
And it was really, really ridiculously violent and ridiculously badly finished because, as I say, it wasn't finished.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely loved all the characters in them because they were just so messed up.
What did you that sounds very similar to the Rockstar games Manhunt, sort of similarly kind of controversial, violent, sort of.
It was way before that, but it's that sort of thing. Yeah. So I mean, it was just a fighty game with these insane. You basically got chucked into a random boxing ring of sorts, and it was like a fight to the death.
Okay. And was it sort of framed as though it was for anyone's particular entertainment? Was it like a crowd or like a boss kind of watching over? Or?
No, I think it was just there was two psychos going head to head.
Okay.
And they were all killers. There was like one that was a crazy surgeon who had blood all over his like surgeon's apron.
But again, it's a different time. It's a different time in gaming. As I say, Psycho Pinball, Psychos fighting in a ring.
Yeah.
Also, you just reminded me of. Did you ever play Clay Fighter?
No.
Oh, that was really quite creative. Sort of almost like clay animation in a computer game. But okay. Well, interesting. What?
Sorry,
no, not at all. That wasn't a side. What's next on your list then?
This isn't one game. It's more like a collection of games. It would be Pokemon.
Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have played every single Pokemon now, apart from on the main canon line, apart from Arceus.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I've started, and then I got obsessed with another game. So that's to come back to, basically.
Okay.
But yeah, I love Pokemon.
Is that it?
Yes. No. No, it's not. So yeah,
I love Pokemon. Let's just wait for 5 minutes. Let's just sit in silence.
Well, what else
And
is there to say? It's an amazing game. No, so I love that you level up. I love that it's like you've got all these defensive moves which don't work for battles, and you just have to basically ignore them and just go straight to like hit people. I liked the fact that you just kind of mooched around the world and picked up these little creatures and played with the ones you liked and left the other ones behind and sold them back to the professor.
Oh, you sound that sounds quite tragic.
Well, no, but the whole game, when you actually think about it, is terrible. You're basically like cockfighting.
That's true, yeah.
With creatures until they faint.
Yeah.
And they then require medical attention. And you store them in a tiny ball far smaller than, they should be living free in the world. And apparently this is good for them. And they get all these wonderful, like relationships with their trainers, and they want to die for them. And I'm just like, this is so much wrong with this game, but I really like it. I just ignore the fact that any of that is the case.
Just ignore the ethics. Yeah, just go.
Yeah, well, it's just because they're not real; they're pixels. So I'm like, it's okay. But yeah, in the real world, it would be absolutely tragic. But yeah, so you. Well, it would. Come on.
I'm just imagining, like, again, you're kicking in. I don't know. You're doing a lot of kicking indoors today. You kick in our door and you just throw a ball at our pet dog.
I know. Can you imagine?
Suck him up and just take him off. Go. We're going fighting.
Yeah.
And okay. I guess
you'll practice and get better at fighting.
Yeah. You just skip off down the road just going, Pokemon.
Yeah, like dog fighting's illegal, like cock fighting's illegal, but Pokemon fighting's kind.
Yeah, that's kind. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. Oh dear, yeah.
So did you start? Presumably, then you started on Game Boy with Pokemon, then?
Actually, no. Well, kind of. So I didn't have a Game Boy. My brother had a Game Boy, and he didn't really like me to play it. So I downloaded a ROM.
Do you want to call him out? Do you want to name him?
No, he knows who he is.
Okay.
So I started on a ROM of Pokemon Yellow.
Okay, yeah. That was actually my first Pokemon game.
Yeah, and then I played... I can't remember if it was Blue or Red. I think it was Blue.
Mm-hmm.
And then I forget all of the names. Because they're basically the same storyline, aren't they?
Yeah.
You go from town to town. No, but that's fine. You go from town to town. You collect creatures.
Hang on. That's fine for Pokemon, but not for Zelda.
I realise that there's...
You realised as you said that?
No, I have fully realised all the way. But Zelda, you don't collect...
Oh, I see. In Zelda, you're not actually collecting animals against their will and forcing them to fight. Yeah,
exactly. And you don't fill up a Pokédex, which for some reason fills me with such satisfaction I can't even express. And then when Pokemon Go came out, I was like, oh my God. And I still play that. Mm-hmm. Actually, Pikmin is what I play now. But I probably will go back to Pokemon Go again. But yeah, I really think it's the creatures. I mean, the story's rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
I like learning what the creatures can do. I like their evolutions. Mm-hmm. I like, I think it's the Pokemon that do it for me. Yeah, not any of the other stuff. And then you actually convinced me to play Pokemon Snap because I had always avoided any other games around Pokemon because I was like, they're just a money-making enterprise. Mm-hmm. It's not what it's about. It's just, I'd been really snooty-ish about it.
It's about the fighting.
Yeah,
it's about the animal endangerment and capture.
Yeah, and you'd said like this is another way to interact with Pokemon in a more humane, scientific way, and I'd really bought into this. Like, I really bought into this, and I was like, right, okay, I'm going to try Pokemon Snap. So I got it on the Switch, and then it's like, I mean, Pokemon Snap is basically you're on rails, aren't you?
Yeah.
With a camera, and you're basically looking around and taking pictures. But actually, it was just so adorably lovely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hammered that game and there wasn't enough content in it for me.
No.
I think I finished it within about 20 days and I was like, this is not Not good.
I'd be amazed if there isn't some sort of DLC coming for that at some point, because it's a really good game. And the original, again, I suppose honorable mention on the N64 was very important to me. But I actually introduced Mrs. Soup to the original Pokemon Snap on the Wii U. They finally released it after the Wii U more or less was confirmed as being a dead console. They released it on the digital shop front, because it just looked a bit cleaner. It was, now when you go, especially when you go back to N64 games, the polygon count and the colors are so muddy, and the polygon count is so low that it can be quite hard to enjoy those games if you hadn't already played them when they were around at the time, I think.
I think nostalgia makes you not hate rubbish games, doesn't it?
Well, and especially not hate that weird, really, really weird time when people were learning how to make 3D games. So actually, when you go back,
Nothing Can Save Broken Sword 3. Was it 3?
Yeah, no, I think it was 3. Yeah, 3D. But actually, even when you go back and play the original Tomb Raider, it's weird. It's really weird now to play because they were figuring out how on earth do you turn Lara. How do you help her to aim? How do you navigate the 3D space? Excuse me. So it can be hard to go back to some of those games in the late 90s, early 2000s, definitely. But I'm so glad that you enjoyed Pokemon Snap, though. And as I say, it is that scientific thing. It feels like you're on an expedition.
No, it is.
You're not there to hurt them.
And it's a really ethical way of interacting with Pokemon, because you're watching them in the natural habitat, and as they get more comfortable with you, they do more interest. It's just really lovely.
Yeah, exactly.
But I really enjoyed it, but it isn't, to me, what the Pokemon. It isn't the game that made me. Do you know what I mean? Like, the games that made me were this wander around, catch Pokemon, fight gym leaders.
I'm just imagining you turning up on the island as a you're trying to reform yourself as a Pokemon champion. But you're just covered in the skins of Pokemon that you've murdered over the years.
You have such weird thought processes about me in our conversations.
I do. Well, it's hello. My name is Ruth. I am the infamous champion, the scourge of Pokemon. I am here to reform myself. But yes, Pokemon, excellent entry, definitely.
What's your next one?
For me, this is where I start to get into PC gaming, because I started to have access. Well, first of all, my then girlfriend, her dad had a PC that could, oh my goodness, run the game that I'm about to talk about. But then eventually I got hold of a laptop for university and this kind of thing. And the games that I always got whenever I got a computer of my own were the Half-Life games. Starting obviously with Half-Life, but then you've got Opposing Force, Blue Shift, as sort of add-ons to that game engine, that world. And it was fantastic. And so at this point, playing Half-Life, I had played GoldenEye. I knew what a first-person shooter was. But Half-Life introduced me to, and this is where, again, maybe there's a bit of a theme here in terms of worlds, freedom, and storytelling, in so much as I love the fact that Half-Life, and now I think the best first-person shooters copy this, Half-Life really puts you in the shoes of the protagonist, and you only know as much as the protagonist has been exposed to. So you're not given an overarching sense of the world or the story that you're in. You literally start that game. I mean, have you played Half-Life?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Okay. Well, you start that game.
It's on my list
it should
of
be.
Things to get round to playing eventually.
I mean, do you have the orange box for the PS3?
I've got... Yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. I can't see it there, but
okay. Well,
I'm pretty sure I do.
I mean, Half-Life, I don't think is on that. Half-Life 2 is, though. That's worth playing. But in a very similar way, throughout those games, you start off more often than not in transit. So you start off in the first game on the monorail system on a science campus on your way to work, and people are saying, "Morning, Dr. Freeman." So you're unusually you're an academic, you're a theoretical physicist, and you go and put your hazmat suit on. You're going into your first experiment of the day, and all hell breaks loose. And then you got to try and fight your way from the bottom of this sort of laboratory in the I think Mojave Desert to the surface. All the while, creatures are being pulled in from other universes into this lab, and some of it's really dark. Like you have the head crabs, these sort of chicken-like things that jump on people's heads. The noise, if you know, then you know what that noise is. Of the sort of as they leap towards the screen, the iconic first weapon in that game is a crowbar, and in fact, I've just got here. Hang on.
As the sound quality gets terrible because you've moved so far away from the mic.
It's okay. I've got a foam crowbar here precisely because of Half-Life. I love it. It's almost like a Hollywood prop type thing. It looks like a fairly real crowbar, but you can sort of hit things with it. I just loved it, and I loved the combination of the fact that you were playing as a character that other characters in the game knew, the fact that people made reference to you having people like you. It'd be a case of, can you just plug that in over there, please? And you go and plug something in. This is in Half-Life 2, actually. You plug something in, and one of the characters says, that MIT education is really paying off. And it's the fact that you are a silent... I mean, Gordon Freeman is an infamously silent protagonist. So you're able to sort of occupy that space without hearing someone else's voice, as it were. You feel as though you are him. But also it's the fact that the game was a clever first-person shooter. There was lots of sort of environmental puzzles. There was tactics, but it wasn't overbearing. And also, as well, at the same time, though, the gunplay and the first-person shooter element was really, really solid. There's a reason that people are clamoring for a Half-Life 3, a follow-up to the story, because it's just excellent. But that first one. Again, just opened up a world of possibilities in terms of how stories are revealed to you, and for me the best games of recent years ever since then, I suppose. So of the past, 20 years of the past 20 years have had that sort of approach where
Are you feeling your age?
I am feeling my age, yeah. Where they've had that sort of approach, and you have that excitement of the reveal as you go around a corner and you see something new that the character didn't know and you didn't know before you saw it. I mean, that sounds blooming obvious, as it were, but it's often not the case, because often in a First World War, Second World War computer game, or in a sort of a multiplayer shoot 'em up type first person shooter, really the story doesn't matter, the context doesn't really matter. And especially in the war games, it's just a case of, here is something that you already kind of know the outcome of, and you're just going to play your way through it, and boom 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 kind of thing. And but Half-Life really felt like an unfolding story and a narrative, and as I say, hopefully they'll make a Half-Life 3 someday. I've been rambling on a little bit there, but
no, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm sorry I didn't have very much to add because I haven't played it. I mean, I've heard lots about it. I've been told I should play it. It's just not really got to my console to do it yet. And I say yet because it is on my list.
Yes.
So my next one is Broken Sword.
Yay!
Which I introduced you and Mrs. Soup to over lockdown, as we've already discussed.
To be fair,
all 5 of them.
Yes, yeah. So I'd already played the director's cut on my phone.
Oh yes,
yes. So they released it as an app on the iOS store when I had an iPhone.
It's so good.
Yeah. But yeah, Broken Sword. Where did you start with that? How did you?
So we got it for the PC at home, which was like a family PC, and I had a game on it. In fact, I think me and my brothers had a game, and my mum had a separate game.
Right. Yes.
So I think we were constantly ahead of her, and she was kind of, she would be like, "Give me a clue, but don't tell me the answer."
Yep.
Was kind of how it went. So, yeah, and I just remember. I mean, I also remember watching. Do you remember there was that? Was it called The Game Master or something? There was a TV show on.
Games Master, yeah.
Yeah. So
with Patrick Stewart.
Was that who it was?
Was it Patrick Stewart?
Oh, was it?
No, it
who
was.
Who was the head?
No, it wasn't. It was the really famous astronomer.
Oh, what's his face? Patrick Moore.
Something.
So Patrick Moore.
Yes. Patrick Moore plays the xylophone. There's a song.
Okay. I don't know the song. But yeah, so I remember watching that being reviewed, and it was the opening scene that they were playing. And in the opening scene, a clown goes into a French cafe and leaves a briefcase, which then explodes. And our main protagonist, the American George Stewart.
George.
As Nico calls him, George. So, yeah.
You do that very well.
Me and Mrs. Soup spent ages shouting at the screen, going like, George, stop it.
Yep.
George, no. Very frustrated with him. But yeah, the opening scene's brilliant. It's a really good animated
also really cool sound
sequence.
effects. I remember hearing the honking of his clown nose when he's walking, and then
and so you then come out of this explosion, and because you're George Stobart and you're on holiday and you seem to have endless. Oh, because he's a lawyer as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's obviously got some money and no clients needing his help at the moment. So he goes on this big, detective adventure where basically the whole of France is kind of going, leave it alone, George. And he just keeps going. And it's a kind of point and click adventure in the same vein as like Monkey Island, which I'd loved so much. It's got that same kind of logic. It was beautiful in the sense that you went all over the globe. You went to Paris, you went to Ireland, and there was a goat.
God. Yes, yeah.
The goat's infamous because getting past the goat was a nightmare. And I think they actually updated the code to make that easier when they re-released it,
Yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me.
It was just so awful to get past that goat, but it's such a lovely little detective story, trying to find the Hashashin, like a killer, and it's like this all built upon like the Templars and stuff and the modern day. It's just great, really good. I mean, I suppose it's kind of like an Indiana Jones, isn't it, with a kind of obnoxious tourist.
Indiana Jones with a little bit of sort of Robert Langford. I've forgotten what the author's name is now, but that sort of.
Oh, you mean like Dan Brown?
Dan Brown, yeah, a little bit of Dan Brown.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, so George goes round and he meets this Nicole Gollard, the journalist, who's a failing journalist, by the way, but she's on to this big scoop with George, and there's all this like sexual tension, which I was on.
Wait, so go on.
I was on board with all of that. I really was. I was like, I love it. And she's like, would you like to come to my apartment?
You're like, yes, please.
And we're like, yes, we would. It never really, you never really see them together throughout the whole series, do you? Like at the end of the first one, they get together or they have a little cuddle or something. And then the next time they've fallen out.
Yeah. He crashes he's in a crashed plane, isn't he, or something? No, or is that part 3?
Oh, I can't remember.
Part 3. Yeah. But the thing is, and this again goes back to this weird thing of when people were figuring out how to make 3D spaces, because when they turned 3D, that was a real low point for the series.
It was, because they went from all the puzzles originally were just kind of like, when they go here, mix these two items together, like talk to this person about this clue.
Yeah.
And it was kind of nice, fluidy kind of things. And when it went 3D, it was like, push this box, this location, so you can climb up here. And
but also things like because I remember, because you two were getting to the point where you're going, we can't play this anymore. Mark, just get us through this area. So you just hand me the controller, and it was a case of push a button to climb the box, push a button to climb down from the box, push a button to. It was just clumsy people figuring out how on earth they're going to make a 3D game work.
Yeah.
But also, I remember in that 3D iteration, Nicole Gallard was really bothering you guys because
Oh my God, she was, because they had her on a repeat.
Stretching, yes.
No, she was so overly sexualized in that third one, and there was long sequences where three of the characters would like stand in a triangle and discuss things.
So like in her flat or something, and they're figuring out the next clue.
And they'd each have like a motion that they did on repeat.
Yeah.
And one of the men shifted his weight.
Yeah.
Another man put his hands in his pocket and took them out. And Nicole Gallard, like literally put one hand in the air, kind of did a wiggle, jiggle, boobs out, bums out.
Yeah.
And then put her arm down. And it was just like,
yeah.
Why does the woman do that? Like, why is she so overly sexualized? And these long conversations are so long. You were just waiting. It was like on a 6-second repeat or something.
Yeah, and she just
do this wildly, like, completely out of context with the other motions in the scene.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to believe that that's how women just stand around talking.
Oh.
Let me just wiggle seductively. I was just like, oh my God, that is just no. But having said that about the third one was poor. But the first two are very, very good. Yeah. Lovely stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really good kind of fun characters come out, don't they? Like Dwayne.
Oh, Dwayne.
And Pearl.
Yeah, Dwayne and Pearl.
Who may or may not be secret agents, and you just never really find out, do you?
No.
Ever.
No, you're never quite sure. I think they did manage to bring it back though, didn't they? By the time, was it Broken Sword 5?
Yeah, that was good.
That was the crowd.
And that was actually crowdfunded, yeah.
Yeah. Attempt, and basically they responded to criticisms of the fact that the game didn't need to be full 3D. So it's kind of like 2.5D, isn't it? The fifth one.
Yeah.
So you can sort of move through space in the Z axis, in the Z plane, but it's not push a box button to move a box.
Oh yeah, because that stuff was just awful.
Yeah. But yeah,
I don't quite know how you had more stamina to deal with those crazy 3D puzzles than me and your wife, but I was just literally like ready to throw the controller at the board at that point.
I think
not the board.
I think it's because of having just been, I lived through that difficult time in the late 90s, early 2000s, just trying to figure out. So I mean, the other day I was playing a Dreamcast game where it was Buzz Lightyear. I just thought I'd give it a go playing as Buzz Lightyear. I think it's Buzz Lightyear Star Command or something. And what they'd done to figure out how to move in the 3D space was they had you pulling the trigger buttons to turn him. So he sort of moves around. Yeah. So you don't use a stick or something. Actually, there's only one stick on the controller actually, but there's no. It didn't it wasn't a case of you move left and the camera sort of comes around behind you as they did, for example, in Mario 64. No, on this one, you press the button and it just goes, it just like moves. It doesn't sort of slow it. So yeah, it was rough times. But we made it through. Next for me, it's another PC game. And this one is this is not in the same vein of sort of possibilities of gaming. This is just a gaming milestone for me. And that is Stronghold on PC. It was released in 2001. And again, it came out more or less at the same time as I got hold of my first laptop. I went to uni in 2002. And, 2004, sorry. But I was entering a gap year in 2002, 2003. And it's a game where you build a castle, you manage an economy, you have to stave off enemy attacks. There's a it's like a god perspective, so you're looking down on the map, as it were, and there's a very servile, obsequious sort of monk cleric who is managing your affairs. So you'll sort of say, I don't know, the people are leaving the castle, my lord. And you'll have to sort of respond to it, or, welcome, sire. So whenever, for example, Mrs. Soup hears me boot up that game and it says, greetings, sire, she's like, that's an ego boost, isn't it? But it's not just the fact that you are, Lord so-and-so. I just really enjoyed, first of all, building castles. I'm from North Wales. I love castles. Conway Castle is my favourite. I actually once built a version of Conway Castle in Stronghold on a previous PC. And subsequent games, Stronghold 2 moved into 3D, had some of those awkward problems that we talked about. I'm not really a big fan of later Strongholds, but there was a Stronghold HD release on Steam of the original game, and it's just great fun. It's really good because it gives you just enough tools to build a castle that you might want to build.
Like a strategy game.
It's sort of strategy. Yeah, it is strategy.
Like Sim 3000 or 2000 kind of. Sort
of. I mean, it's definitely got real-time strategy elements, especially because, you have to build your defenses. You have to get crops and people and healthy villagers, so they have to have access to food and beer and medicine in order to be able to train soldiers. So you can have spearmen, you can have archers, you can have you can lay down tar pits that you can set on fire. You can build a moat, all this sort of stuff. It's good. It's pretty good in that sense, but I recognise it's not the best of the bunch as far as real-time strategy goes, but I just find it really pleasing, really, really charming. And whenever you click on an NPC in the game, it's a really funny thing where it'll sort of go, "Morning, my lordship," that kind of thing. Or like if someone's drunk, they'll just be like, "Hick." So I don't know. I just really liked it, and it's a slight departure in terms of my list so far, but I find it very relaxing. It's a very relaxing game to play. Yeah.
Well, my next one is possibly my favorite game of all time.
Uh-huh.
And that would be Skyrim.
Ah. Yes, actually you've just helped me out in that sense, because I wasn't sure on the next line whether to talk about one game or the other. One of them was Skyrim.
Well,
Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim. Yes.
Yes. So I have probably
Take on.
I have played this game through more times than I can remember. I've played it on pretty much every type of character you can have.
Mm-hmm.
I've played it as like single combat, magical,
mm-hmm.
like thief, no weapons, ranger, like arrows.
Do you tend to be a good person or a
No.
thief? No.
I am all about the bad when I play Skyrim.
Mm-hmm. All about the bad.
But also,
bad.
I just play every single mission.
Yeah.
Like, and most of the missions, you're not a good guy.
This is true. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and you kill more people in the world than anybody else.
Yeah.
Anybody, you are a death maker in that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, you literally ravage the plains of Skyrim, killing everybody.
And sometimes in that game, it's kind of funny. You sort of, a couple of times recently when I've been playing it, I've been going, "Am I the bad guy?" Because like you'll just turn up at like a camp where, these are thieves and they're gonna ambush someone on the road, but they haven't necessarily ambushed you yet. But you come in from behind the camp and you just kill everyone. And then take their stuff and move on, you know?
Yeah. No, I would definitely say this is one of those situations like Pokemon where you are the bad guy, but it's okay in that world.
Yeah.
You know, I love Skyrim. I love the fact that you can get there are so many different ways of playing the game in terms of like combat and stuff, and I love the fact that you can get credit for doing all the little bits and pieces that you don't like. So like you can, like, I liked one whole game I just basically made armor, and I was like the shit at making armor, and I got credit for that in my character. And then another game I played through, I was like an alchemist and I was just poisoning people left, right and center.
Well, that's one of the great things about that game, is that it improved the stats that you did more often.
Yes.
So if you did blacksmithery, you would get better at making armor or jewelry or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
And the perk system was
Yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I loved the fact as well that there were so many little hidden, like, because you could pick up rumors and stuff and you could go and explore stuff, but then there were also these random little things that you just fell upon and discovered, and there was no way of anticipating that would happen.
No.
And I think that was lovely. In fact, the only way I haven't played it is I haven't become a vampire lord, because I did for a little bit and I was like, this is so shit because you can't go out in the sun. And I was just like, so I got changed back.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh.
Well, you can, but you get these people start telling you look sick and you don't have, you're not good in the sunlight.
Right.
It's like your powers are severely diminished. And I was just like, this is just making the game unpleasant to play. But yeah, I loved the fact that you could get married. I loved the fact that, like, I married so many different people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was like, and I adopted all these different kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, which are the best? And I was like compiling a list of like.
Did you make them fight?
What, the kids?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is as well, like, they've got really interesting backstories, and then you get them into your house, and then they're suddenly just like, "Hi, mom. Hi, dad. Did you want to play a game?" And it's like, no, you were more interesting when you were selling, you had a little enterprise of selling flowers on the streets.
Yeah.
Like, why when you were
like,
more
interesting as a street urchin.
They were.
Yeah.
And the same with the wives and husbands.
I didn't rescue you to be nice.
I was like, you need to get a side hustle on here.
Yeah.
and then occasionally the kids would bring back like a wild animal and be like, can I have a pet? And then you'd have this weird fox running around your house. Mm-hmm. I was just like, okay. But, it was fine. It was fine. I enjoyed it. And I liked, my favorite mission's probably the Thieves Guild mission, where you become part of the Nightingales at the end. Oh, spoiler alerts, people. But basically, it's such a rich game. There's so much in it. I remember just enjoying I know it's not the best graphics and stuff now, but I remember just enjoying the world, the changing of the seasons. There were some clunky bits, like it's pretty clunky going up and downhill with a horse.
Yep.
Well, I love the Dark Brotherhood as well. That's one of my favorite ones as well. Like, I loved assassinating people. That was so much fun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I remember. I remember really enjoying investigating a serial killer in that game.
Yes, that was part of the Dark Brotherhood.
Yeah.
No,
I think. No. I think
that's how you get the house.
Yes.
In Winterhold, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. But yes, investigating that and then finding the fact that then you have these sort of moral quandaries at the end of some of these quest lines, like, do I let this continue or do I I was
like, no, everybody must die. It's like, the Dark Brotherhood thing, where like they kidnap you, don't they, and they put you into a room,
yes,
and they're like, you need to kill one of these people, and you can go and talk to all the people, or you can kill Astrid.
Yes.
But I was like, who would do that? Because then you don't get the Dark Brotherhood missions. I killed them all.
You killed them all?
Yeah. I was like, I don't know, but I want to be an assassin. So boom, 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 all dead.
Wow.
And Astrid was so pleased with me. And I was like, yes, I was born to be part of the Dark Brotherhood.
Wow. See, well,
that was one of my gameplays. I have also just killed one of them before.
Have you ever just killed Astrid?
I know, because I couldn't bear to not do, because then the whole of the Dark Brotherhood quest, and you kill the Emperor. I'm like, why would you not do that?
Yeah.
And I love Cicero, and you get his costume. And no. It's just, you can't not play that.
No.
I was not loyalty good person.
I'm trying now. So they've released so many versions of that game, but they have released one with updated graphics on actually on Switch.
I've played it.
Yeah. So it does look a little bit
Twice.
better now. But yeah, whenever I play it, I always do good things. I'm really bad at being bad in the game, but I'm
So
trying to play
I
now
came
as a
to the
horrible person.
conclusion, yeah. Well, I came to the conclusion with that's what it must feel like if you're a genuine psychopath. That
Yeah.
you're the lead character in your life. Everybody else is an NPC. There's no consequences. You just go around and be like, "I don't like you." Bang.
So basically, it's letting you play as a psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're back to Psycho Pinball.
Hey.
Yay! Well, actually, interesting. I mean, because you chose Skyrim. I chose another
Excuse me.
game from the same studio, and that is Fallout 3
Oh, I love the Fallout
and
games.
Fallout New Vegas as well. And this is back on that sort of milestones kind of territory. And this is actually my last pick of the list. And it's a milestone because it again, I think it further opened up this notion of freedom, exploration, character-driven discoveries. And I think, as you were just describing with Skyrim, there's this sense of almost sort of actualized adventures. You're not necessarily
Yeah.
told what to do in every scenario, but you'll have stories that unfold that you will remember, and I still remember very, very vividly, or very fondly, or very, very, very scared. In fact, with some of the memories going, "Oh my God, this happened next," because of the way that they'd set up this environment for you to fall into. Basically, you just fall into other people's lives.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think the open world games, the way that you are free to just do what you want, are for me by far the best.
Yes.
By far the best type of games out there. I am really looking forward to playing the new Pokemon with that. As I say, I haven't started it yet, but I do love open world games, and the Fallout games are fabulous because of that as well.
Well, I believe you're getting your hands on a PS4 in the near future, so you're about to play Fallout 4.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I really want to play Fallout 4, to be fair.
But interestingly, though, I suppose that's not an unqualified truism. It's not absolutely true that all open world games are great. So like an awful lot of open world games just do the same thing as other open world games. There'll be towers to go to that unlock part of the map. There'll be very fixed, repeated quest lines, the same things, the same pickups, the same, whereas actually I think the best open world games, and I think these tend to be the ones that stick with you, are ones where it feels like a much more complex tapestry. And so,
Yes.
for example, I know we're probably about to talk about Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild has towers, but it also makes up for that by having a much more complicated way of moving through the landscape, for example, actually having landmarks and memorable places like the Twin Peaks, for example, close to the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Fallout 3 for me was similar in so much as I found myself, when I emerged from the vault, very attached to the ruins of the village or the town just at the bottom of the hill, and then is it Nuketown, the first town you come across?
Yes, I think so.
Or was it Nuketown.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I found myself very attached to that environment, that area, and when I moved out into the rest of the world, I almost always found myself coming back to it in my first playthrough. Yeah.
I've only played through that once, but I definitely was like, that's my base.
Yeah.
I knew that town. I could get stuff in that town. I knew it more than other places. So it was kind of a place I kept returning to when I was like, I don't know what to do at the minute. I'll go back there and see what's going on and then come and do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am obsessed with Animal Crossing at the moment. I am in the middle of my second obsession with it. I've talked about it before on this channel, that I am
Your horror
slowly
island.
trying to make it, well, not just horror, but realistic horror.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that do horror and it's like flames and skulls and blah, blah, blah. But this island is like, you go to the beach and there's an illegal pet trade. And there's a murder ink shop
we're back to
where
Pokemon.
Yeah. Well, there's a Murder Inc. stand where you can order killings, and there's a poison shop where you can buy poisons and other things. Oh yeah, there's like a garden that's dead, so it's just like full of rotten dead turnips and dead plants.
You've set up an out of control steamroller that's about to squash a puppy.
That's true. Oh, and a baby. I put a baby carriage behind the puppy. The puppy's trying to defend the baby.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it's already squashed several items on its path as well, because there's like dead animals in its wake. So yeah, it's and it's a work in progress.
At some point, you're going to make this a dream island so people can visit it, aren't you?
Yeah, and my mission at the minute is to get creepy villagers. So there's villagers that have got scars and robot villagers and that have like weird freaky eyes that look like demon villagers, and I'm like, those are the villagers that I'm after. So at the minute I have 5 of the 10 that are where they need to be. So when I get all 10, I will make it into the dream island and hopefully stop, because I'm literally obsessed with this game and it's taking over my life. This is probably the game that I've put the most hours into. I would have said it was Skyrim, but I really think it's probably Animal Crossing now.
Yeah. The thing is, though, it's so compelling. We have an island as well, my lovely wife and I, on our Switch. And obviously, we visit each other's islands all the time. So I've explored your island, you've explored our island. And I love it. I love the fact that it is, again, maybe this is very similar to what I've been talking about. It's world building, it's exploration. Yeah. It's also very creative, because actually, so one of the things that I mean, you know this, but one of the things when I was growing up that my mum really discouraged was my interest in dolls' houses, Polly Pocket, and kitchen sets. As a kid, I was really into. Whenever I went round to because
houses. If you're a boy, that's not allowed.
You shouldn't. Yeah, you shouldn't do that.
No,
whereas you've
got to conform to gender norms.
The thing is, though, I also loved Transformers and Ghostbusters and the Aliens toys, as we've talked about as well. But I was really into that stuff, and I always wanted to play with the dolls' houses, and because it was the ability to create a little environment and to think about, where does this chair go and how does this relate to this table and where will people sit down. I was never, I never went, I never went down the route of sort of, I was an interior designer, I guess is what I'm saying. I wouldn't necessarily play out scenarios like, now we're going to have a tea party. No, I was, although I would do that with the kitchen. So now this is a slight aside. I would do that with the kitchen. So I feel
like we get so much insight into your childhood on these.
I go through to the adults and just say, would anyone like a sandwich? And go back to the kitchen and come back with 2 plastic slabs with plastic sausages in the middle, and just here you go, here's a sandwich. So I would, we would do that with the food. But with the houses, it was the layouts, and it was the, like I say, interior design elements. And I think you seemingly were quite surprised at how well designed my house was, actually.
I was.
You're quite.
You've spent some time on this. Yeah. I think because your wife, Mrs. Soup, had spent so long on the island, and I hadn't really seen you playing it as much.
No.
I hadn't really, I think, understood how much you had kind of got into that. And so when I did go into your house, I was like, oh my God, he loves this game.
No, I really
and you have an archaeological dig, don't you?
Yeah.
And every time I find interesting items, I send them to you, because you
put them in the dig. Yeah. Well, I think recently you found a mossy skeleton, which is perfect for the dig. But that's the thing as well. It's the range of items in that game. It's a huge game with huge possibilities.
Yeah. Well, I think on that score, you're benefiting, aren't you, from the fact that this is the 5th version or whatever.
And
I was obsessed with filling up my museum and my Critterpedia, and I've just recently done that.
And we're back to Pokemon.
Yeah, we are.
No, but and then the fact that, because I think we started playing it when they'd already introduced the update that allowed you to go swimming and diving.
Yes, they had,
and that sort of thing. And so it's been a real pleasure to see the game expand and evolve. It's a delightful I mean, some people literally think it got them through lockdown
Yeah.
as an experience.
But it's just such a lovely, warm, nice game, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
it's a place of loveliness. Like even the villagers are not horrible. They're like, I mean, they're pretty nothingy. They don't really say much apart from like, or they say weird. Like the latest thing my villagers have started saying to me is they had a dream about me.
Okay.
And then they say these really weird things like you were really big and you fell on me or something really weird. And you're just like, okay, I don't know who wrote that dialogue for you, but they are
That's weird.
strange.
Yeah. Well, they've started, but didn't they for a while all start using the catchphrase "horny"?
Yeah, they did.
Like meaning rhinoceros horn.
Yeah, no, so they could make. So I was like, I had a mouse, so he said cheesy, and I had, I don't know, something else who said something related to their animal thing, and then this rhinoceros was like, I want a new catchphrase.
Yeah.
So I wrote horny, not realizing how much this particular phrase was going to take off on my island.
Yeah.
And like all of the villagers started saying it. They just copy each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Horny.
yeah, all my villagers were horny for a long time.
So we agree, Animal Crossing is fantastic. But what's the big what's the other game on Switch that we are coming to?
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. Da, 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 da.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think we both agree that this is one of the best games ever made.
Yeah. It's quite possibly my favorite game ever. It sort of vies.
It's
for that.
right up there for me as well, actually.
Mm-hmm. And why? I mean, this is technically on your list. So why for you? What about The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild works for you?
So I like the fact it's an open world game. I like the fact that I could explore the world in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that there were lots of different landscapes and lots of different ways of interacting with those landscapes.
Mm-hmm.
I liked, dare I say it, the puzzles.
Yeah.
In the shrines.
Yeah.
Despite my previous, but they didn't feel clunky to me. And actually, the way that you solved them felt like it wasn't like you figured out what to do and then you did it. You explored it at the same time as you did it.
I mean, let's be clear. The Legend of Zelda got into a pattern where you went into a dungeon, you found the key item for that dungeon, you used that key item over and over again, defeated the boss, and then used that key item somewhat in the rest of the game. It got into that pattern. It absolutely did get into that sort of rut, actually. And often the developments of the series were in storytelling and in, for example, moving into 3D. Ocarina of Time was one of the more successful first attempts at doing a 3D game in a series. And so they had other priorities, graphical textures and qualities. People were desperate for a dark Zelda, so they went into Twilight Princess, following on from what for me was an excellent Zelda in the form of Wind Waker, that sort of cel-shaded GameCube look, which it still holds up today. It's a beautiful kind of almost Pixar kind of style. But in that sense, they became more interested in the iterations of style than they were in iterating the way that you progress through the game. And so, yeah, absolutely. Zelda had a problem with dungeons. And the funny thing is, though, some people are clamoring for dungeons. They were still, with Breath of the Wild, they were like, where are the dungeons?
Yeah, no, I think as well, it was very removed from, I think, what had come before in that sense. But I think that was what got me into it. And I can understand why that may alienate an established fan base.
Well, elements of the fan base. I think most people adore it. For me, the thing that's most exciting about that game has been the various systems that they put in terms of physics. Fire burns things, ice freezes things. This sounds obvious, but the way that you can play with this stuff in the environment is really exciting. The weather system that comes in and is on a, you can see what's coming next on the timer as it's sort of progressing. The sound, the fact that you have a little sound meter, so you know whether or not you're being stealthy.
We have to be stealthy.
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed the Divine Beast puzzles and having to move them in a 3-dimensional way. I found that very...
Almost like a puzzle box.
Yeah, but I found that very unique in terms of how to navigate a puzzle in a computer game. Like, it was pleasantly challenging. Required some thought at times, which was really good.
Yeah.
I also thought the story was strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, having come to Zelda from nothing, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, my previous experience with Link was on the Wii with that shooty game.
Oh, crossbow training. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, to be fair, I masterfully got good at that. I did play a lot of that game because as I say, I love shooty games. But that was basically my experience of Link prior to this game. I knew there was like a princess. I'd kind of in my head imagined that the princess was more like Princess Buttercup. Is that their name?
Oh, in Princess Bride. Yeah.
Yeah, like so she was like this kind of like useless character that kind of didn't do very much and needed saving. And I was pleasantly surprised to see that she wasn't. She had some skills of her own. I liked the fact that there were different like kind of races. I liked all the horses. I liked all the different clothes. I loved the city where you have to go and pretend to be a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also loved that within that city, there was so many people that pretending to be women.
Yeah.
Like there were just so many people in there that clearly were not women. That was very, there were lots of like things like that. I loved the fairies who kind of sexually harassed you more and more as they gave you more. It was like, oh my God, we're being groomed by a fairy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was lots and lots. It was a rich world to me. You would discover surprising and delightful things. I loved the little like random side quest where you make a village, you make a town.
Tarrytown, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was just, and in fact, I probably wanted more of that. Because I think that was really the only mission that was like that. And I also feel like even then you got your house, you didn't really do anything
with it. Yeah.
With it. And there wasn't an ability to kind of customize it or make it really cool, which again, I think it's not integral to the gameplay. It would have just been a nice little aside for me to enjoy. So I think it was just, you didn't go long without encountering something interesting to do in the game. There was lots and lots of stuff going on. I also really didn't like it at the time a lot, but really liked it retrospectively. The fact that you start off so vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to skill up considerably. Yeah. And it's painful. And you die a lot.
Yeah.
And you really work for that skill level.
Well, and I remember initially you were going, "This is rubbish," and
I just keep dying.
Yeah. And I was just like, "Just stick with it. It's part of the. It's part of the get you." But it is part of the game, and in that sense, eventually you get to a point where not only do you have better clothing, better weapons, and so on and so forth, but also you have a better sense of how to approach each individual scenario. The game gives you lots of choices in the landscape, like you can push boulders down on people and this sort of stuff. The use of
I loved some of my favorite shrines as well were the ones where you didn't have to do anything in the shrine, but finding the shrine was where you actually had to like interact with the landscape and find fun, interesting ways of getting to. And it's like your beeper would be going off like mentally, and you'd be like, "I know it's here. It's got to be here.
Yeah.
How do I get underneath where I am right now?" And there were so many things like that where you're like, trying to puzzle stuff out, and that was glorious. That was really, really lovely.
Yeah, and it's interesting though, because some of the things that you're describing there are things that actually I already recognised from other Zelda games. So some of the asides, some of the funny little characters like, for example, Beedle the trader, who turns up in Breath of the Wild, I'm talking. Sorry, just for people who can't hear, Ruth kind of went, but the thing is. People who can't see, sorry.
I deliberately didn't say that out loud. Thank you.
No, I know. No, but it's interesting because what I'm saying is that the quirkiness of Zelda has always been there. So some of the people that you meet, some of the characters that you bump into, absolutely in Majora's Mask, that they turn up in. I mean, I'm going to have to one day show you the character Tingle. I think, have you tried on Tingle's clothing in Breath of the Wild yet? The weird sort of fairy thing, the green onesie.
I don't know. I must have done. I think I've got everything you can get, so I just must have done.
Tingle is a very interesting character. He's very, very popular in Japan. They've released Tingle games, but I remember being very creeped out by Tingle when I first met him, because he was just sort of like, "Hi, you want to be my friend? I like magic and fairies. Kululimpa." So it's funny in that sense. Maybe what the previous games did was they sort of rationed out the quirkiness to an extent where it wasn't necessarily visible to people who weren't really in the game, I guess. Whereas Breath of the Wild, clearly, it gave you the opportunity to be in that world a bit more and to meet those characters and to enjoy it. I mean,
also, I wasn't being forced to meet them.
No.
I was meeting them in an organic way. Whereas, and if I found a character uninteresting, I could just be like, meh, and wander off. Whereas other ones, I was like, I love you. I will interact with you multiple times. But again, I think that's one of the triumphs of open world when they're done well, is you can focus on the way that you play the game is the way that is of most interest to you. And you can, and I mean, I did eventually go back and do everything in Breath of the Wild. I mean, I didn't complete the DLC. I possibly will go back and do that, but I did everything else you could do because I just wanted to go back and do these things. But the fact that I was able to go and follow the whims I wanted to at the time and keep the level of interest up. And I think as well, the fact that, you had these little tiny rewards, didn't you? You'd get to the top of a mountain and there'd be something interesting and you'd get a Korok seed and all of that was, I loved that. That was, like, oh, I've just got to the top of this tree. Oh, there's a thing. That's great. Thank you, game. You've just rewarded me for doing this random task. That
so you're rewarded for following your curiosity, which is which is a key part of it. Absolutely. Breath of the Wild. I mean, I think people know by now it's a great game. The sequel's coming out next year. It's been delayed until spring.
I know. I cannot wait to play that, actually. I was gutted when I heard it was coming out later, but...
Yeah. Just means it'll be better.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's been the games that made us.
Yes.
Yeah, and as I say, by no means is it a comprehensive list. Almost certainly we'll return to computer games in a future episode in some way.
Oh, I would imagine so, yes.
But hopefully you've learned a little bit about us and our gaming careers, I suppose, our gaming loves and passions. What's next month's episode going to be about?
So next month, Mark and I are going to rewatch the new Matrix movie. To remind ourselves of the wonderful world building of the Wachowskis.
I have my notes from the cinema screening, but I'm going to add to them.
Do you? Yeah, well, that's amazing. So I think we're going to talk about...
Sorry, that sounded almost... That's adorable.
No, I didn't. Oh my God. I swear, you misread me. That was genuine, earnest delight.
Well, thank you.
I just, that's dedication to the, you've kept the notes from the
Yep.
cinema. That's lovely.
Yep.
I'm very excited to be reminded of our previous conversation. So yeah, we're going to talk about the Matrix. We possibly won't stick to the fourth movie, but maybe just talk about kind of the world, the things that we love about it,
The
how
lore.
it all fits together. Yeah. Because I think it's a really rich subject matter. So yes, that's coming up.
Well, and it's also a better film than people have given it credit for.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not the best Matrix film,
No.
but it's a better film than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah.
Grand. Well, I look forward to that, and I guess we'll see you next time, guys, on the
Yep.
Else
Realm Diner. Bye.
Bye bye.
My realm is the present.
More than anything else in her life, she wants to see Paris.